If you've dedicated years to supporting your children, pouring resources into their education, driving them to endless sports practices, and helping them navigate life's highs and lows, this shift can be both painful and bewildering. Suddenly, the dynamic between you and your child begins to change. You might notice them dismissing your advice, rolling their eyes at your stories, or even speaking to you with impatience. Worst of all, they may start to treat you as an afterthought rather than someone whose experience and wisdom should be valued. But here's the truth: frustration and resentment won't bridge the gap. In fact, they often do the opposite. Anger can create rifts that only deepen with time, and repeated arguments can turn into walls of silence. Before you know it, neither of you feels inclined to pick up the phone or stop by for a visit. That's why it's crucial to approach this situation with both composure and determination. You need a strategy that upholds your dignity and self-respect while keeping the lines of communication open, avoiding words or actions you might later regret. After all, the years of love, sacrifice, and dedication you've poured into your children shouldn't lead to resentment or heartbreak. You deserve acknowledgement for everything you've done, whether it was comforting them through sleepless nights, investing in their dreams, or offering unwavering emotional support. If you've started noticing that your voice no longer carries weight in their lives, it's time to restore that balance. Your children may now have careers, relationships, or families of their own, and in the whirlwind of daily responsibilities, they might not even realize they're unintentionally pushing you to the sidelines. However, this doesn't mean you have to tolerate neglect or disrespect. The key isn't in nagging, scolding, or guilt-tripping. Instead, it lies in self-awareness, confident communication, and prioritizing your own emotional well-being. By setting healthy boundaries, reinforcing your self-worth, and embracing a fulfilling life of your own, you naturally remind your children of the parent they once admired. They begin to recognize why your wisdom and presence still matter. And before we begin, watch the complete video to understand why your child doesn't respect you. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more parenting and health-related videos. In this video, I'll walk you through 6 powerful strategies you can apply right away to rebuild respect and strengthen your relationship with your children. Each step is designed to empower you and help you reclaim the value you deserve. Designed to help you foster a more balanced, loving connection, these strategies aim to create a space where your voice is truly heard, your needs are acknowledged, and your lifelong contributions are appreciated. Some of what you'll hear might go against your instincts or feel unexpectedly challenging, but I invite you to stay with me through it all. By embracing these approaches, you can reclaim your place not as an afterthought, but as a vital source of strength, wisdom, and emotional grounding in your family. If you're ready to strengthen your bond in a way that's both healthy and lasting, you're just a few meaningful mindset shifts away. Now imagine this: you've spent a lifetime putting your children first, shuffling your schedule for their appointments, running across town for last-minute favors, and saying yes when your own tank was running on empty. For a time, it may have felt like self-sacrifice was the glue that held your family together. But here's the truth: respect isn't born from constant giving. It flourishes when you show that your time, your feelings, and your well-being matter just as much as theirs. I once met an incredible woman named Margaret. In her earlier years, she was the heart of her family and community. She was an active church volunteer, a respected professional, and the kind of woman who spoke her mind with clarity and confidence. But as she entered her mid-60s, something shifted. Slowly, she started letting her adult children make every decision for her. At first, it was small, letting them choose the restaurant or rearrange her plans. But over time, her voice was drowned out completely. Her children stopped seeking her input. They began treating her like someone to manage, not someone to admire. Margaret didn't lose their respect overnight. It happened gradually, through years of silencing herself, brushing off small hurts, and thinking that going along with everything was the path to peace. But in keeping the peace, she lost her presence. The turning point came when she realized she no longer recognized the strong, independent woman she had once been. The hard truth she uncovered is this: the more we diminish ourselves in hopes of earning love, the less that love feels real, and the more it begins to look like obligation rather than respect. Reclaiming that respect doesn't mean lashing out or tallying sacrifices. It begins with releasing the need for their approval. Speak your truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Set boundaries, even if you fear they'll push back. Value your own time and emotional space, because when your children see that you take yourself seriously, they'll be far more likely to follow suit. Over time, that shift in how you carry yourself can help re-establish your rightful place as a parent who is not only loved but respected. Because while children may grow up and outgrow their need for guidance in some areas, no one outgrows the respect owed to a parent who has never forgotten their own worth. Think about this. Have you ever tried to force someone to respect you, only to find that the harder you tried, the faster it slipped away? Respect isn't won through raised voices or emotional lectures. It's earned quietly, steadily, through how you show up in the hardest moments. Take Frank, for example, a retired teacher who once held the attention of entire classrooms filled with teenagers. Frank found himself struggling at home. His adult children dismissed his advice, chuckled at his concerns, and rarely took him seriously. At first, Frank did what many of us might do. He argued. He reminded them of all he'd done, the sacrifices he made, the years of love and effort. But the more he pushed, the more they pulled away. Everything changed when Frank stopped trying to prove his value with words. Instead, he returned to the quiet confidence that once commanded a room. He listened, really listened, when his children spoke. He spoke thoughtfully, calmly, and without even realizing it, he began modeling the very respect he wished to receive. And slowly, things shifted. Because respect doesn't begin with convincing others. It begins with showing up as someone who respects themselves first. Let's walk through how you can do the same. Frank spoke with quiet purpose only when he truly had something meaningful to offer. When disagreements arose, he didn't argue or try to force understanding. Instead, he let silence do the work. Over time, something subtle but powerful began to shift. Without a single raised voice or emotional plea, his children started to notice the same quiet strength that once made him a respected teacher. That calm confidence did what years of frustration never could. It rekindled the respect he'd been missing. Frank's friend Linda found the same to be true. She discovered that the fewer battles she chose, the more her adult sons listened. She wasn't trying to win. She simply carried herself with quiet assurance, and it changed everything. Because respect doesn't come from proving your point. It grows when your self-worth shines through, day after day, regardless of anyone else's reaction. And when you embody that, you don't just shift how others see you, you transform the entire relationship dynamic. One of the hardest truths to face as we grow older is this: your children are not responsible for your happiness. Yes, you love them deeply, and of course you long for their love and respect in return. But the moment they feel like your emotional well-being rests on their shoulders, the relationship begins to feel less like a bond and more like a burden. This doesn't mean they love you any less. It's simply human nature. People tend to retreat from relationships that feel emotionally demanding. That's why reclaiming your emotional independence is one of the most powerful moves you can make. By investing in hobbies, friendships, passions, and growth, you show your children that your life is rich and fulfilling beyond just being their parent. And here's the beautiful irony: the more grounded and whole you are within yourself, the more they're drawn to you. I think of Helen, a warm, generous woman who poured everything into her kids. She helped fund their education, babysat her grandkids on short notice, and rarely said no. But when her children got busier, she found herself staring at the phone, waiting for them to call. When they didn't, she'd call them frequently, dropping hints about how much she missed them. It didn't bring them closer. If anything, it made them feel like every call came with emotional weight. The conversations grew shorter, more strained. Then one day, Helen made a quiet but bold choice. She stopped waiting. She signed up for a painting class she'd always wanted to take. She started saying yes to coffee dates with friends and even joined a local volunteer group. She stopped hovering around social media to track her children's lives. And the shift was immediate, not in them, but in her. To her surprise, her children began reaching out more. They were curious, engaged. They asked about her artwork, her new friendships. By stepping out of a space of emotional dependency, Helen stepped back into her own light, and her children started to see her not just as mom, but as a whole, inspiring woman in her own right. Here's the core lesson. When you stop tying your self-worth to anyone else's attention, even your children's, you become a source of energy, not a drain. You're no longer a figure of guilt or obligation, but someone they're excited to connect with. It's not about pulling away, it's about filling your own cup so that every interaction flows from joy, not need. Still, independence is only part of the equation. True respect also requires clear, consistent boundaries. Many loving parents fall into the trap of thinking that tolerating disrespect keeps the peace. But the truth is, every time you allow the lines to be crossed without consequence, you teach others how little those lines matter. Take Rahul, for instance, a retired businessman who once led an entire company with strength and clarity. When he brought that same steady leadership home, everything changed. He calmly corrected his children when they interrupted or spoke condescendingly. Did they love it right away? No. But when they realized he wasn't going to back down, they adjusted. He didn't argue or shame them. He simply stood his ground. To build boundaries like Rahul, start by identifying the moments that leave you feeling small or overlooked. Then, express your limits in a clear, composed way. Say things like, "I'd like to finish what I was saying before you respond. If we can't speak respectfully, let's pause this conversation." No anger, no guilt trips, just clarity, and most importantly, follow through. Boundaries without consistency are just suggestions. But when you reinforce them every time, others learn to meet you where you stand. Pairing emotional independence with firm but compassionate boundaries sends a powerful message, not just to your children, but to yourself. I matter, and my presence in this family deserves respect. And when you live that truth, others can't help but rise to meet it. By stepping beyond her comfort zone, Eleanor began reconnecting with parts of herself she had long neglected. She reignited her curiosity, rediscovered her voice in lively group discussions, and began forming new friendships rooted in shared passions rather than family ties. And something remarkable happened. The less she reached for her children's attention, the more they began reaching out to her. They wanted to know about her latest trip, the book she was reading, the causes she was volunteering for. They didn't see her as a dependent figure anymore, but as someone interesting, vibrant, and full of life. This is the paradox so many parents struggle to see clearly. When your happiness is no longer contingent on your children, you become far more appealing to be around. You're no longer a source of quiet guilt or invisible pressure. Instead, you're a whole person, fulfilled, self-aware, and emotionally available in a much more genuine way. Let's circle back to the bigger message here. You can love your children deeply and refuse to be diminished by them. You can offer support without sacrificing your self-respect. You can be present without making your life revolve solely around theirs. When you create a healthy, balanced dynamic, like Robert did, you teach your children that love is mutual and so is respect. By calmly insisting on civil conversation, he showed that his words held value. His boundary wasn't a punishment, it was a declaration of self-worth. And while it took time for his children to adjust, they ultimately rose to the standard he quietly upheld. Donna did the same. She didn't beg for appreciation or argue over being dismissed. She simply stepped back until her expertise was truly wanted. And in that quiet withdrawal, her daughter found clarity and renewed respect. These small shifts might seem insignificant at first, but they are the foundations of a powerful transformation. When you model dignity, emotional independence, and strong boundaries, you're not only changing how your children treat you, you're giving them a roadmap for how to carry themselves in their own lives. Yes, the discomfort at first is real. It may even feel like rejection, but discomfort is often the doorway to change. And as you reinforce these new patterns, your relationship will shift from one-sided sacrifice to mutual appreciation. Even in the case of George, the endlessly generous father, his realization came at a cost. When his family took his support for granted, he faced an emotional reckoning. But instead of growing bitter, he pivoted. He began saying no. He placed conditions on his help. And in doing so, he taught his children that his time, energy, and generosity were gifts, not guarantees. Their frustration eventually gave way to understanding. Gratitude replaced expectation. And that respect, real, lasting respect, could only grow in the space where boundaries were finally present. So, what can we learn from these stories? That unconditional love is not unconditional access. That giving without limits often leads to being taken for granted. That respect isn't demanded, it's modeled. And perhaps most importantly, that you don't need your children's approval to live a full and meaningful life. Once you free yourself from the need to constantly give, please, or be needed, you begin to build a life on your own terms. A life filled with curiosity, creativity, laughter, and connection that doesn't rely on someone else's attention to feel worthwhile. You reclaim your identity, not as just a parent, but as a whole, multi-dimensional person. That transformation might just be the most powerful gift you can give your children. Because in witnessing your strength, your growth, and your joy, they are reminded of your value, not just as a parent, but as a person worth respecting, admiring, and learning from. And that's how lasting respect is earned. Quietly, confidently, one boundary, one decision, one brave step at a time. Absolutely. Here's a beautifully refined and cohesive version of your message. It's warm, empowering, and maintains the heartfelt tone while polishing the flow and clarity. She rediscovered a sense of purpose she thought was long gone. And in a surprising twist, the more she blossomed on her own, the more her children began to call, stopping by, not out of duty, but with genuine interest in her new adventures and achievements. Their curiosity turned into admiration. Their respect returned, not because she demanded it, but because she quietly earned it by living a life full of meaning. If you find yourself in a similar place, ask yourself a bold question. Do my children see me as a vibrant individual with passions and purpose, or as someone simply waiting for their next call or visit? When you demonstrate that your identity extends beyond your family role, you invite your children to see you not just as mom or dad, but as a whole dynamic person. You become someone they want to learn from, not someone they feel obligated to appease. And as you shift your focus to self-enrichment, you'll discover you're not just existing, you're truly living. In that space of personal fulfillment, respect begins to naturally flow back into your relationships, transforming the parent-child bond into something deeper, more equal, and far more rewarding. A final thought: respect can't be forced, it must be inspired. It's painful when the people you've loved and nurtured for decades begin to overlook your feelings or dismiss your voice. But the truth is, arguing or reminding them of your sacrifices rarely leads to the recognition you're seeking. Respect doesn't grow from guilt, it grows from grace. So instead of asking, "Why don't they respect me?" ask, "What can I do to inspire the respect I deserve?" The answer lies in how you carry yourself, the boundaries you set, and the life you build outside your role as a parent. Stop chasing their approval. You may have spent years putting their needs first, but the more you chase approval, the less they tend to offer it. When you constantly put yourself last, you inadvertently teach them that your feelings don't matter. And once that dynamic sets in, it's easy for them to take your kindness for granted. Validate yourself. Show them, without saying a word, that your worth doesn't hinge on their validation. Lead by example. When they dismiss your thoughts or talk over you, your instinct might be to fight back with frustration. But arguments only reinforce the idea that they can rattle you. Calm, confident presence speaks far louder than any lecture ever could. Your strength isn't in the volume of your voice, it's in your steady refusal to be diminished. Build a life beyond them. It's easy to make your children the center of your universe, especially when they were young. But now, your happiness should be rooted in your own growth, joy, and fulfillment. When your kids see you living independently, pursuing hobbies, learning new things, connecting with others, they stop seeing you as a dependent and start seeing you as someone they admire. Think of Helen. After years of devoting every moment to her children, she finally gave herself permission to flourish. She joined a book club, traveled, and embraced her own interests. And almost like magic, her children started reaching out, not out of guilt, but out of genuine interest. Her independence wasn't a rejection of them, it was an invitation for a more balanced, mature relationship. So ask yourself, do my children see me as a person with a full, meaningful life, or as someone whose happiness depends on them? The more you live with purpose and self-respect, the more you naturally earn theirs. They'll stop seeing you as someone waiting in the wings and start seeing you as the wise, whole, resilient individual you truly are. Thank you for being here today. I'd love to hear your story. What's one small shift you can make today to start commanding the respect you deserve? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if this message resonated with you, please subscribe, hit the bell icon, and stay connected. Your support helps us continue creating content that uplifts and empowers. Remember, you don't need to chase respect. Live with dignity, purpose, and strength, and it will find its way back to you. Thanks for watching. Like and share the video with your friends and family for more parenting hacks and tips.